Good afternoon, class. My project for this course is James Madison and his influences that helped him create the Constitution. Now, James Madison was surrounded by great men we've studied in this course: George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, John Jay, Alexander Hamilton, John Adams. And while these men were influential to him, I would argue that the greatest influence on James Madison as for coming up with the Constitution was actually from antiquities, and that came to him vis-a-vis his professor at Princeton, which back in the day was called the College of New Jersey, and that professor was Professor Witherspoon. Great ideas such as the ones that Madison codifies into the Constitution had been floating around for some time. Democracy starts with the ancient Athenians, but they're not ready for representative democracy, and a direct democracy can't work because everybody can't show up to vote. The entire society would stop. The Romans give us the Republic, but the Caesars corrupted and it collapses. Even the great empire of the Mongols was not ready for something like a representative democracy because they were too tribal, and so that collapses. And Madison sees this, and Madison borrows, while he is influenced by the writings of the day, specifically pamphlets of his day and of the previous generation, and that's the part I found very interesting during my research, that there were writings in his own time that were influential, specifically Thomas Paine's Common Sense. It's really the previous period of the Enlightenment that he's exposed to. Hume would be a good example, reaching all the way back to antiquity with Athens. That is a greater influence on how Madison creates this document. Now, part of the reason Madison creates the document is he lives through a challenging period post-revolution during the Articles of Confederation, where it looked like the grand experiment of of representative democracy might actually collapse. The Articles of Confederation was the original Constitution. It was created at the end of the American Revolution, and it was created out of fear of a dictatorship because they'd lived under a dictator, King George, they called a tyrant. So the Articles stripped the federal government of almost all power to do anything, and it would need the consent of the states, and as a result, there was no way to raise an army. Shays' Rebellion is a clear example. It scares Washington back into public service, and Madison crafts a document that balances between tyranny, oligarchy, and dictatorship to empower the government to function and at the same time be accountable to the people and to the other branches of itself. Madison would have been familiar with Aristotle and Aristotle's politics, but at the same time he was exposed to Hugo Grotius, who was really the father of international diplomacy, who inspires Locke, who gives us this idea of natural rights, and that we, the people, are superior to monarchs because God gives us our rights that cannot be taken from us.